I'm going to talk to you this morning. Turn with me to Isaiah 43, and you can throw that up there. This is the beginning of a new year. I was talking to somebody at the youth retreat yesterday, and I said, there's just something about a new year. I've always said this: my bad days are 24 hours long, just like my good ones. And sometimes the best thing I can do is just go to bed. Because it's like, get me a new day, just close this one out. There's something powerful about a new year. There's just something powerful about December 31st. You go to bed and you wake up and it's like, okay, fresh start. Here we go. So I want to talk to you about a new thing. I feel like it's appropriate, is that all right, to talk to you about a new thing this morning, all right? So we want to turn here, Isaiah 43, and you can, did I hear a yell already? Is that good? That is great. Isaiah 43. Let me get my glasses on here briefly. Calm down, Ron. Okay. You should have a lot of grace toward Bonnie because she lives with this. All right, let's start. Let's begin with verse 18. It's up there on the screen. Do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you all know it? I have my glasses on, I can't even read it right. Shall you not know it? I will even make a road in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Now, I'm just coming in here. Maybe Bobby taught last Sunday on a new thing. I have no idea. Maybe 2 weeks ago. But I really felt as I was preparing for you as my coming here that we should share a new thing. Now, I want you to read. I hardly ever read out of the message. But we're going to go to the next slide. Look at the message. Listen to this. Forget what's happened. Don't keep going over old history. All right? Forget that. Don't go over old history. Be alert. Be present. I'm about to do something brand new. It's bursting out. Don't you see it? There it is. I'm making a road in the desert and rivers into badlands. That is so encouraging to me at the start of a new year. No matter what your past year has been, God is doing something new. Now, for you to really grasp, for you to really appreciate verse 18, let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning of the chapter. And of course, we know that chapters are in here just so we can easily find things. So back a little bit easier in the writing here. And let's hear verse 1, halfway through verse 1. He says this. The writer says this. Fear not. Somebody should have yelled there. You missed an opportunity right there. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. Somebody else missed an opportunity. You're missing opportunities, people. I have called you by your name. You are mine. All right, there we go. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. How many have ever lived life and it's just you feel like things are cascading in? And am I the only one that ever experienced that? There's some mornings I wake up, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just I wake up, and my mind starts rolling of the things that I need to accomplish, and the weight, the pressures, this thing, and I just thought of it yesterday. You think, well, you should have thought of this a long time ago, but sometimes I lay there for a while, for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, praying for Bonnie, thinking about the day, thinking before I get up, and I can feel overwhelmed. I'm the only person? And then I go out, and I find my place, and I begin to pray, and immediately it leaves. So it was Wednesday morning or Friday morning, I forget which morning it was. I was thinking all those things I have to do, and I spent a little bit longer than 15 minutes thinking, before I started praying, and then all of a sudden it hit me, why don't you start praying right away? Then you don't have to go through the 15-minute, 20-minute of pressure situation. So, anyway, back to here. He says, with my glasses, he says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers. They shall not overflow you. In other words, that pressure you're under, it won't overcome you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flame scorch you, for I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel. So that should bring encouragement. Some of you are going through the fire. I know you are. That's just life. I've gone through many fires. But he says you'll not be burned. So no matter how hot it is, you'll not be burned. Let me say that again. No matter how hot it is, he's right there. He's with you. Look at verse 5. Fear not. I'm with you. I will bring your descendants from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, don't hold them back. Bring your sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. I remember many prayer meetings where we would face the north, wherever that is here. in the east and the west, and we would call forth the sons and daughters to be a part of the kingdom. We call forth the people that are called to be part of that, of the church that I was leading at that point in time, to be part of Dove International, to be part of Dove Fellowship. We would call them forth specifically. Verse 7, everyone who is called by my name, whom I have created for your glory, I have formed him. Yes, I have made him. Drop down to verse 10, partway through verse 10. That you may know and believe me and understand that I am he. Before me, there was no God formed. You missed an opportunity, I'm telling you. Now there shall come after me, even I am the Lord, and besides me, there is no Savior. Thank you, Rachel, for leading us in the song this morning, and where you woke up. All right, the first song you weren't, anyway, we won't go there. It was pretty cold, I understand. Verse 13, indeed, before the day was, I am he, and there is no one who can deliver me out of my hand. I work. Who will reverse it? Now, if those verses don't excite you, I think you're on spiritual life support, really. I mean, when I read those verses, that should really energize you. It should really charge you. And then you get into, in the midst of all that, he says, behold, I'm going to do a new thing. I'm going to do something new. A new thing, a new thing, a new thing. A new thing looks different. Say it with me. A new thing looks different. So when you understand the passion that is in the writer's heart as he writes this, and as God says, I'm going to do a new thing, let me ask you a question. Where do you want to be from now, a year from now? Where do you want to be spiritually? Where do you want to be relationally? Where do you want to be financially? We confess every Sunday morning when you put your tithes in the offerings. Where do you want to be financially? Where do you want to be as a church? Where do you want to be as a family? You have to set a destination and then take steps to get there. I remember some time ago, a couple years ago, in fact, I was sitting with he was wealthy businessman, and he asked me this question. He said, Ron, where do you want to be financially 10 years from now? So I told him. He said, okay, what steps are you taking today to get there? Oh, good question. What steps are you taking today? There's something to be said about slow and steady. Most of us are looking for that one financial investment that all of a sudden is boom. We're looking for that one time with God that all of a sudden is going to take away all the problems. That one relational, that one date with my wife that all of a sudden is going to break off all the struggles, and all of a sudden, man, now we're doing great. But those breakthroughs don't happen. They do happen, but they don't happen unless I'm consistently doing those things most times, all right? So my breakthrough, my encounter with the Lord, my powerful breakthrough, my visitation that I've experienced a number of times in my life happens because consistently I'm there. Consistently I'm spending time with Him. So as I said, there's something to be said about slow and steady. Here's what's to be said about slow and steady. Slow is easy. Steady is a little more difficult. Steady is a little more challenging because we get bored, or we get tired, or we say, I don't really see the results, or I'm not seeing it fast enough. I know I'm putting money in that account, but I don't see it multiplying fast enough. I know I'm spending, I continually loving and serving my wife, but I'm not getting a return. My ROI isn't coming back as fast as I expected. I was expecting at least 30, 40, 50% return, and it seems like it's coming back in the teens. And I'm just expecting, am I relating to anybody? Okay? And then it's that steady part that we fall off and we slack off, and the major breakthrough doesn't come. Slow and steady. Where do you want to be? How do you want it to look 5 years from now? I've said this many times. I have a dream. I have a dream that the church becomes the powerhouse that God designed it to be, that place of power where ordinary people are doing extraordinary things in everyday life, in everyday places. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you're encountering the Holy Spirit, and He's showing up. Prophetically, I believe the Lord is saying He's doing a new thing. I share with our USA team, I feel like for me personally, and for a number of the responsibilities that I carry, I feel like 2018 is a developmental year because there's a number of entities that I'm responsible for that we're just kind of like either we plateaued or we're going through some change, and I feel like this season is going to take extra energy, extra effort, extra strategy to be able to get it into the next realm that would take it to the next level. Okay? So I feel like it's a developmental year for us. Now, as I began to prepare this for you, I really felt let me just share this. As I was preparing, this is the week I was preparing, this was one of the devotionals. Listen to this. Rest in me, quiet in my love, strong in my power. Think what it is to possess a power greater than any earthly force, a sway greater and more far-reaching than any earthly king. No invention, no electricity, no magnetism, no gold could achieve 1/1,000,000th part of all that you can achieve by the power of my Spirit. Just think for what moment all that means. Go forward, for you're only beginning to live this new life. That same week, I read a prophet who wrote this: because Christ is in us, there is more authority in a single believer than all the kings, presidents, and dictators or authorities on the earth. God's people have reigned on the earth, but not very well. Few have grasped the power entrusted to us, much less walked in it. We have the authority to do things that he did, and even greater things, as I alluded to earlier. And then as I thought and processed new thing, I was remembered back, it was right about a year ago, in fact a year ago in 2 weeks, we had some prophets that spoke into us as a movement. And I want to share with you one of those prophetic words partially, and then another partial prophetic word, and then we'll look at how we can practically look at new things. Are you with me so far? All right. This is a word for the movement, or a word over the movement. It's not the complete word, but it's excerpts out of it. And know this, so when God prophesies over the USA family, over the network, he's also prophesying over you. So we appropriate every prophetic word that we receive as you. So let me appropriate this word over Crossroads. He says this: I think that you guys are like resting now. I don't think you've made your greatest impact yet. Let me say that again. I don't think you've made your greatest impact yet. Bobby and Wanda, I don't think you've made your greatest impact yet. There is going to be a new season of prayer that's coming out of a new season of listening and a new season of strategy. Now, let me give you a sidebar here. Often we measure our spiritual growth by our prayer life, and that's good to a degree. But let me press it a little bit farther. Prayer also requires action. So if you're just praying, that's good, but prayer should motivate you, let me rephrase that. Prayer should bring you, not just motivate you, it should bring you to action. I'm reminded as the early apostles walked to the temple, and the lame guy was there, and he was looking for alms, and Peter said, I don't have any money, but what I have I give to you. In the name of Jesus, rise up and walk. So he prayed for him. He spoke into him life. In the name of Jesus, rise up and walk. And then he did something different. He didn't just walk away. He reached down and grabbed him by the hand. So he prayed for him, but then he reached him by the hand and began to pull him up. And as he pulled him up, it was then that the miracle was released. So prayer is good. Prayer with action is even better. That should speak to someone this morning. You've been praying for something, and now it's time to act. You've been praying, you've been interceding, you've been believing. And I don't know who that is, but I feel like the Holy Spirit is saying it's time for you to act. Someone needs to act. So the word goes on. Here's what he says. Where very few networks, and let me say this, where very few churches can adjust with time, I see you guys being able to adjust. There is a willingness in your hearts to do whatever God wants. Am I talking to the right group, or should I just kind of stop here? There is a willingness in your hearts to do what God wants. I see a fresh surrender in the Dove Network, appropriated to Crossroads. I see a fresh surrender at Crossroads of being able to surrender to whatever God is doing and being able to adjust and make adjustments according to the will of the Lord. Adjusting isn't always easy. We'll get into that in just a minute. But it's mandatory if you want to stay abreast with what the Lord is doing. Excuse me as I'm reading more for you this morning. He goes on. God is going to give you wisdom to quell fears as these changes happen, because they're essential to the growth of what God is doing. I see some of you moving into levels more than you have done so far. And I see new ones, younger ones coming up. Some of the ones you've been investing in, they are starting to bring fresh ideas, creativity to the process. Who are the young ones? Can I see your hands? Are they all at the youth retreat? Yeah. Who are the young ones who feel young? The old ones who feel, yeah, they're a much better response. There we go. They know how to play well with their elders. They trust even when you don't take action as well as when you do take action. Bold and underlined. The bottom line is you have not made your most significant impact yet. It is still to come, and I believe he has you to seek it. It's going to be practical, like really simple, not a complicated strategy. So that would have been, it was the end of the year in December. It was about February or March of last year then that I received a text from a friend of mine who's a prophet who is really a South African, lives in the States. But he texted me and he said, hey, Ron, can we talk? I said, absolutely. Call him the next day. We set up a time, called him. And as he said, Ron, I just really feel you're my connection with Dove, and I feel like I have a word for Dove, for the Dove family. And he began to say, whoa, wait. I put him on speakerphone and started my phone and downloaded about an 8-minute prophetic word that he had for the family here. And then he went on and said, now I have a word for you, and another, 6 or 7 minutes over me, which was powerful. But I want to share with you what he had to say and speak over the Dove family and appropriate that over you. He said this. He said, the Father's going to begin to challenge some things. For those who have come to a level of comfort, there's going to be a shaking to the point of disorientation, and there is going to be a deep hunger that is going to start to surge in the hearts of the people. Let me say that again. For those who have come to a level of comfort. Now, this was last February, toward the end of February. So this has been really put out there and has been released for the last 10 months, coming up almost 11 months. So again, this is what he said. For those who have come to a level of comfort, there's going to be a shaking to the point of disorientation, and there's going to be a deep hunger that is going to start to surge in the hearts of the people. There's going to be such a heart and a passion towards migration in pursuit of the purposes of the Father. Bold, underlined. Conformity is going to be challenged. And you're going to find people really starting to become very uncomfortable because they're going to be challenged to move forward in understanding the real big picture the Father has mandated upon this work. One of the youth peers that spoke last night, or yesterday morning, in fact, right before Sam spoke on this, awkwardness. One of the youth got up and spoke, and that was their topic, awkwardness. And the need to be awkward, the need to put it this way, to move forward in God always takes that feeling of awkwardness. I remember reading an article a couple years ago that I shared with our USA team. It was called the awkward space. That space in time, that space in experience when you step out in faith that God has spoken, but you're not quite sure it's going to happen, and that awkwardness. That begin to exercise that gift, that thing that he's spoken into your life, to take that risk. Sidebar, every business person takes risks, okay? There's a number of business people that I've spoken to, and some of you would relate to this, is that they've prayed, they fasted, they heard from the Lord, and the Lord said execute, and they've done it, and as soon as they've done it, they begin to fear because they think they've just overstepped their bounds. That awkward space. That space where I'm not sure I can really, really achieve. It says, bring the next generation to the forefront. There's been training and equipping, and it's time to release them. I believe, in light of all this, the Lord prophetically has been speaking forth what we have began to embark upon last year. That was some of the uncomfortableness that we reached at the end of the year, which led into the developmental year for us and a number of things that we're doing. But a number of things, out of everything I shared thus far, here's what I want to do, and then we'll get into some practicals, because I'm a practical guy. Number one, know your authority. Talked about that in the beginning. The Lord's doing a new thing. Number 3 is press into it. Okay, number 4, it may cause disorientation. It may cause awkwardness. That's okay. It's okay to be awkward. It's okay to be awkward. Can't go down that sidebar. Believe for and release the next generation. Now, here we go. Practicals for embracing a new thing. Next slide. Practicals for embracing a new thing. As I said, I'm a practical guy. Number one, Number one. Oh, they should have came up one at a time. That's all right. Here, we got the whole slide. We'll give you the whole thing, message all at once. Here we go. Acknowledge the Lord is doing one. What do I have up there? Check your cynicism at the door. Check your cynicism at the door. Listen, I encounter too many people that are cynical about what God is doing or seemingly isn't doing, and they miss out then on what God is doing and miss out on all that He wants to put out there. So many people, nobody here, but so many people are stuck in a rut, what I call mindless church mindset, that comes every morning. They get some teaching, and then they leave, and it doesn't impact them, doesn't change their life, and they're frustrated, and they said there's no life there. Well, I would be frustrated too. I would be frustrated too. You know, I remember one guy telling me one time, he said, Ron, you're part of the old thing. You're part of the old wineskin. He said, I'm going to be part of the new wineskin. I said, well, where are you attending right now? He said, well, I'm not attending anywhere. I said, well, that's great. You be part of that new. I'm going to help birth the new and then spiritually father it into the maturity that it needs. That's where I want to be. I want to be part of what is happening and then birth what new is happening. Now, I have to be open. I come into an awkward space as some of that happens, as the young ones come. God is integrating His Spirit in our lives, and thrusting us into society around us. So we have to release the cynicism. I think it was, I shouldn't say who it was because I'm not sure, but it was a well-known evangelist. It was said about him, a guy came up to him and said, you know, I really don't like your style of evangelism. And this guy said, you know what? I don't either. What's your style? He said, I don't have one. He said, well, then I like mine a whole lot better. I've had people say, well, this isn't new. We've tried this before. Newsflash. Ecclesiastes, what is it, 1, 9 and 10 says this, there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun. You know, I used to pastor a church in Lebanon City. Bonnie and I led a church in Lebanon City, and man, we thought we were really pressing in, and there was phenomenal things happening. We were loving God, and there was things just being released. And then one day I thought, well, I want to get a history of Lebanon. And I went into our local library and got into the not National Archives, but the archives kind of thing, historical archives, and started researching the Lebanon camp meeting ground, which was just this little place at just a camp meeting area outside of town. And I began to read back through history. And read back in the early 1900s when they would come with horse and buggy, and the power of God would hit them when they were miles away. And they would get there and climb into the trees so they could see what was happening. And they would begin to shake and literally fall out of the trees because of the power of God. And I thought, you know what? I ain't seen nothing yet. And there's nothing new what God is doing here that He hasn't done before. There's nothing new under the sun. In fact, let me you got that. We're running out of time. You got that. Ecclesiastes 1, 9, and 10. Oh, I have it right here. Here. History merely repeats itself. History merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here's something new, but actually it's old. Nothing is ever truly new. So Bonnie and I were sitting around a dinner table with a senior leader from another state. We were enjoying dinner together with a number of millennials. And they got together to brainstorm, to think about the future. And it was interesting as we sat there that evening, every idea those two young future leaders brought up, the senior leader said, that doesn't work. We tried that. Yeah, we used to do that. That doesn't work. Every idea was pushed under the table, shot down. That won't work. And some of them were a little off the wall. Some of them were like, well, yeah, that's a great idea, but you aren't going to pull that off. One of them was, we're going to do a drama every Sunday. Well, yeah, probably is not going to happen. Let's start with one. Do one a month. Start there. But the point I'm trying to make is this, is the cynicism took over where they couldn't even hear that which the Holy Spirit potentially was saying. Listen, even if it was tried in the past, everything's totally different now. You're going to leave here totally different than you came in. I mean, that's my prayer. Isn't that yours? Right? Tomorrow, I'm going to be different. Tomorrow, Bonnie and my relationship is going to be at a different place than it was yesterday. Okay? We had a great time chatting, talking on the way down, the whole way down here, almost the whole way down here this morning. Okay? So as you continually grow in your relationship, lives change. You change. So about the time I have her figured out that and know how to relate to her, she changes on me. It's a good thing. I need to change to stay up with it. All right. So we look at Isaiah 43, verse 19, and it says, "Behold, I'll make a road in the wilderness." Do you think it's the first time there was a road made in the wilderness? Let me remind you of the children of Israel. 3 million people. 3 million people coming out of Egypt. 3 million people. See, I looked this up last night. Winchester has 27,000 people, the last census that I saw. That would be 111 Winchesters of people. If there was not a road in the wilderness before, there was a road in the wilderness after. 3 million people going through the wilderness, there was a road. Okay? Plus animals. There was a road. Isaiah is written long after this. There was a road, and this is not the first time there's a road in the wilderness. How about a river in the desert? Is that the first time there's a river in the desert? Remember that same story. 3 million people plus animals. 3 million people crying out to Moses saying, "We are thirsty. We're dehydrating. Where is water? We should have stayed in Egypt." Remember the story? What does Moses do? Takes his staff and what? Strikes the rock. Do you think there was a water fountain came out of that? You think there was a 6-inch main? 3 million people, they would have died in line waiting. They would have crushed each other to get to the water. It had to be a river. Let me prove my point. Psalm, and I just found this. I came across this. Psalm 78. This story relates to Moses. It says, "Behold, he struck the rock, so that the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed." There was rivers in the desert. This isn't the first time. No, but it's first for this generation. It may not be the first time for he's ever done it, but it's new and it's fresh for you. Embrace. Drop your cynicism at the door. Number two, it's right up there. You must be willing to let the old go. This is harder than most of us realize or even verbalize. What does cast your net on the other side of the boat really look like? If you've been fishing all night and casting your net on the left side, what does it look like to go in totally the opposite direction? Same environment, but doing things totally different. What does it mean to reach out to the unsaved, to the pre-Christians in 2018? What does that mean for you? How am I going to engage with the lost? How are we going to do it? When Jesus came, his mission was established, and then he birthed the church out of that, or in conjunction with that, to take that mission, to propel that mission forward. How can we engage with that? How can we seek and save that which was lost and let the oppressed go free? How can we embrace the Father's dream that none should perish? Look around the room. Go ahead. Those of you in the front, turn around. Everybody look around. Look around the room. Do that while I get a drink of water. Go ahead. Your Crossroads. There's no B team. There's no other congregation that meets Sunday afternoons. This is it. You're the ones. If you're going to fulfill the prophetic mandate that God has for you, it's going to be you doing it. It's not the reinforcements that are going to come. They're going to help. These chairs are going to be filled. Go to second service or bigger building or something. You're going to continue to grow. But know this, you are a vital part of making that happen. We'll get into that in the last few minutes here remaining. So how do we do that? Number 3, take ownership. Take ownership. I've said this before, you've heard me say this a number of times. What you do not take ownership for, you're powerless to change. You're powerless to change. I was talking to an individual on Friday, 2 individuals about something, and anyway, they related to their son going to school in the next grade. I think it was 4th grade. Started going to 4th grade, and all of a sudden this year was oppressive. Last year was great. This year was oppressive. Dynamics changed. Classroom oppressive. Students bullying him. Just all kinds of different stuff. He came home and said, "I don't like school. I don't want to go to school, Mom. I hate school." So they could have said, "Well, yeah, that's really bad. We'll look at an alternative. maybe go back to homeschooling or something like that, whatever. But they chose to do this. They chose to take responsibility and began to pray and pray specifically for God's peace to rule in his heart, for bullying spirits to be broken, and a number of other things. And the next day he went to school, came home, and he said, things have changed. It's totally changed. And this year has been a grand year. That was back in September. This year has been a grand year for him. And then I said, what you do not take responsibility for, you are powerless to change. She wrote that down. We live in a society that doesn't want to take responsibility. My child's not doing well in school, it's because a teacher doesn't know how to teach. We have a son that's a school teacher. We have another lady, a couple people in our family that are school teachers. I have a niece that's a school teacher, a daughter that also is a substitute teacher, a son that's a teacher, and somebody else in our small group. And they'll tell you in those parent-teacher conferences, sometimes the parents say, well, it's your fault. You're not teaching my child correctly. Cop pulls someone over and, well, he profiled me. He saw I was young. He's picking on me. He doesn't like red cars. That was the reason I was pulled over. Not to mention I was going too fast and passed at the wrong place. But anyway, my finances are a wreck. Well, they're not paying me enough. Oh, by the way, I got to tell you this. We were in a house church last Saturday night. There was a transition of a senior elder. And we were in a house church, and there was so much life coming out of this house church. In the beginning, he said, "Any testimonies?" And man, everybody's raising their hand for testimonies, and young kids sharing testimony. Here was one of the testimonies, 5th grade, right? Jonathan, 5th grade, and him and another girl in the house church. They're in 5th grade in the public school. And he said, "I just want to testify. Remember, you guys prayed for me. I started our Bible study, and we had 12 classmates there over recess. Instead of going out for recess, they started a Bible study and had 12 of their classmates there. Isn't that phenomenal? Is God doing a new thing? He's doing a new thing. It's just amazing. As I said, as long as I take my responsibility out of there, I'm powerless to change. If a business owner said this, in fact, he was the founder of a billion-dollar company. He said this. He said, if I could get all the people in this organization rowing in the same direction, I could dominate any industry and any market against any competition at any time. The power of moving together. The power of moving together. Listen, sometimes the best thing you can do is just show up. Just show up. Go to the next slide. Let me ask you this. Honey, in my bag, when my... There it is. When my grandson, he's 4, right, honey? Yeah. When Ethan was just being born, prophetically, it was spoken over him that he would assist me and preach with me. This is his debut. I asked him to do something for me. Next slide, please. And hold it there. Let me ask you this, and I'll look at it up here as well. It's a picture of a line. I brought this along for a sermon illustration, but I asked Ethan, I said, Ethan, put a puzzle together for me. I want to take a picture of it. What's the most important? First of all, how many of you like jigsaw puzzles? Okay. Oh, wow, quite a few of you. Grace to you. Sorry, that slipped out. What's the most important piece of the puzzle up there? How many corners? Everybody, corner. Went to Walmart and got a 300-piece puzzle here. What's the most important piece? What's the most important piece? The first one? First one's the most important? All of them? Yeah. The next slide shows the most important piece. Go ahead, next slide. The missing piece is the most important piece. That's the one that takes you underneath the sofa, tears everything apart. Listen, Crossroads is a puzzle. Each of you are a piece of that puzzle. You know the most important piece? The one that doesn't show up. The one that's not here. The one that checked out. The one that says, I don't know, worship's just not the way it used to be. The one that says, I don't know, I'm just not sure, but I don't know, fill in the blank, whatever it is. The one that becomes cynical and says, this whole supernatural stuff, I'm not sure about that. I don't think Bobby's cutting edge anymore. Whatever that is, it's the person, it's the piece that doesn't show up. Next slide. If you don't show up, if enough of you don't show up, the picture is incomplete. How many of you have puzzles that you keep putting together that have 10 missing pieces? None of you. You get rid of the puzzle, right? I don't care what piece you play. You're an important part. Now listen, I can't tell you where you're called. That you have to answer yourself. But when you know where you're called, then show up. Show up. Be a part. Show up. Where am I going with that? Oh, here we go. 1982, Bonnie and I, some of you know our story. We walked into Dove. At that point in time, it was a group smaller than this. 5 small groups met during the week. We walked in. We didn't know vision. We didn't know the leaders. We didn't know anything. All we knew is that later on that week, we felt great about being there. And later on that week, the Lord said, this is where I've called you. And for 35 years, we've showed up. For 35 years, we've been there. What's the vision? Part of small groups. Where's one near us? There's one in your county, only one in your county. Okay, we'll be a part of that. And for 35 years, we've been a part of small group. Never have been in between groups. If we stopped one this week, where's the next one? When we were leading one, if we closed one, which one could we be a part of? Because it's who we are. We showed up. We showed up. We showed up. So you think, well, do you think I was never? Do you think I was never had the opportunity to be offended, to be wounded, to not show up? Do you think I ever had that opportunity not to show up? Think I have? I don't know if I ever shared these stories or not. Let me give you 2. One Sunday I just finished preaching, and this is back in the days before we had electronic daytimers anyway. And I had a paper one. A guy came up to me afterwards. He said, hey, what's your schedule like? There's a guy I used to meet with on a pretty regular basis. And I said, hey, not too bad. Next week, it's looking pretty good. Do you want to get together? And he looked at me and said, no. He said, I just noticed your sermons haven't had any content lately, and I thought maybe you're too busy to study. Do you know what I did the next week? I showed up. I showed up. Prayed. I said, in fact, it was Monday. I said, Lord, this will either break me or make me. I will either deal with this, or I will deal with it rightly or wrongly. And the next week, I showed up. So it was sometime later. I don't remember if it was a month or a year or whatever. I was talking with a good friend of mine, and as we were sitting there at the picnic table in his front yard, we were talking about life, just talking about life. And he goes, well, how many hours does it take you to prepare? I mean, just really, what does it take? I mean, that's got to be tough. I said, I usually figure at that point in time, 9 hours just to prepare. That's usually what I figure. He said, well, man, 9 hours may be enough for Larry Kreider, but 9 hours isn't enough for you. I'll tell you what I'll do. Why don't you prepare, and then Saturday night we can get together, and then I can give you pointers on how to make it better. Do you know what I did the next Sunday morning? I showed up. Show up. You choose whether you will allow life circumstances to take you out of the game. I guarantee you the enemy wants to take you out of the game. I can look at those 2 situations, and I can look at it 2 ways. I can say, well, the enemy's trying to hold me back. Or I can say, here are 2 people who really want to help me grow. Did they do it the right way? I wouldn't recommend they do it that way. All right. There are some better ways to do it. However, I chose to listen to what they had to say. We were at our regional gatherings this year, and our theme was Ignite and Ignited. And at one of those gatherings, there was quite a bit of I shouldn't say quite a bit. There was one leader was just, as they were sharing, or was just saying, there's been different times this year and previously where I just felt like giving up. I mean, the pressure was so great, and circumstances, dynamics. I just felt like giving up. And we were on our way home. We were driving home, and Bonnie looked at me. She said, "Hon, do you ever feel like giving up? Because I never hear you say that. Do you ever feel like it?" I said, well, we both remember the time back in 1992 when the whole movement, at that point in time, wasn't a movement yet, but just a family of churches, of 8 churches, where we were under tremendous pressure. Where one morning I woke up, said hard-pressed but not destroyed, but just tremendous pressure. And at that point in time, I remember walking through a situation that literally just broke me. And I remember being in a room, went to one of our church buildings, and our facilities and spent time in one children's classroom and laying over in a corner, curled up in a fetal position, crying, saying, God, I didn't ask for this, remember? I wanted to farm. That was my dream, remember? I didn't ask for this. Take me out. I'm tired I don't want anybody else to say you hurt me. I don't want anybody else to say you messed up. The Lord said, Ron, get up. I've called you. Learn from this and move on. Move on. I've been accused of being too hard. I've been accused of being not hard enough. I've been told I've been a yes man. All I can say is you never sat with me in a meeting. All right? I've been told I bring too much correction. I've been told I don't bring enough correction. But you know what? We continually show up. We learn. We grow. What can I learn from that situation? I'm teachable. I'm moldable. We grow. We move on. Let me see here. We're just about out of time. You doing okay? Good. We want to honor the children's workers, though. Yeah, let's do this. Let's go through the last three briefly. Bring up the last one. Okay, embracing a new thing. Last three. Be sensitive to the roadmap. Be sensitive to the roadmap. When God's doing a new thing, there's a process, there's a strategy. It's laid out. A new path requires new disciplines. Listen, my car, some of you might know where I live, but where I live, if you drive past the house, within a quarter mile, there's a Y. My car automatically turns to the right at the Y. It just does. I get there. I couldn't turn to the left. It just goes to the right. Okay? Sometimes we're going to the right, and Bonnie says, where are you going? Oh, unless I make a conscious decision to turn to the left. You have to embrace the roadmap, or your habits of the old will kick in, and you'll find yourself doing the old, expecting the old. You'll allow your expectations even to lower to where the old was, and you'll miss out on what God has for you. So you have to carefully look at the roadmap. Where does he want us to go? And again, how does he want us to get there? Okay, next. Number 5, make a decision to like the new. Make a decision to like the new, because it is a decision. It's a decision. Now, the reference I have up there is Luke 5:38 and 39, and that's referring to wine. Okay, it's saying the old is better. Everyone will always say the old is better. I have no idea about that, but all I know is this, is that even in the scope of natural things, people will say the old is better. We like the old. There's no reason to change for the new. Why should we change? Well, the reason is because God is doing a new thing. That's why we should change. Anytime the Holy Spirit throws something out and he gives you the opportunity to go for something new, let me give you the encouragement, go for something new. That doesn't mean he's not doing something in the old, but it's doing something new. I guarantee you, if he's in it, he's doing something new, and you can, again, go along with that. So, make a decision to like the new. Do I have anything else along that? The old, listen, the old is like a canceled check. How many of you go home at night and just page through your canceled checks? Wow. Loved buying that check. Loved buying that motorcycle. Oh, it's great. What a great motor. By the way, I just bought a motorcycle, another motorcycle. Do I have time for that? Yeah, show up in people's lives. Let me give you this example. Show up in people's lives. Use every opportunity. Now, first of all, I miss many opportunities. But I had the opportunity to buy a new motorcycle, another motorcycle, not a new one. My old one was, lest you think more highly of me than you ought to think, my old one was a 1987 with 70,000 miles on it. My sons were like, Dad, upgrade. Dad, upgrade. I'm like, the pipes are loud, the chrome shines, that's all you need. Guessing where I want to go. In fact, we were down here in Virginia last summer. But anyway, we were able to find a new one. I probably going where I shouldn't go, right, honey? We were able to find another motorcycle. We bought it. And we went to the notary, and the notary, this is, again, I can work this right in. This is great. I went to the notary, and this guy, he's ancient. Let's just say he's elderly, okay? He's sitting at his desk, and I walk in, and he looks up, and I go, oh, hi, how are you? And he goes, fine. I said, wow, how long have you been in business? He said, 70 years. I said, would you start when you were 10? He said, no, when I got out of the Army. That puts you in the mid-90s, I believe. Yep, 96. I mean, it was 96 or 97. So he wasn't quite as fast, all right? But here's the thing. He showed up every day for 70 years. I said, you're an inspiration to me. To show up, to keep. You could retire. He was a vet. He even got a physical, whatever you call it, where they paid him extra. Anyway, because of an injury, he could have retired, but he kept showing up. So here's where I showed up. He didn't write as fast, okay? Just a precious guy. We had such a great time talking. It took us a long time there, but he's writing the numbers. But because it took us so long, I used the opportunity while we're standing there. I turned to the guy I brought the motorcycle from. I said, and we had some conversation leading up to that. But I said, did anyone ever share with you the gospel? He said, no, not really. I said, great. Give me the envelope of the title, that you have the title, and we'll flip that over. You all do that 3-circle thing, okay? You do the 3-circle thing, and you're able to share the gospel with him. He said, can I have that? Absolutely. Take us along. He said, can I send you some more things? Absolutely. Show up in people's lives. That's all I'm trying to say, okay? I don't always do that, but show up in people's lives. What's the last one? We're out of time. One more. Last one is, back up. Pay attention to your GPS. What's your GPS? Your God prompting sensitivity. So here's where I got that. The last example, and we're done. I'm getting on a plane, and I fly a lot, fair amount. And as I'm walking down the aisle, everybody's on their screen. You see it. Everybody. Say everybody. I'm sure there was one or two that weren't. I exaggerate. On this example, normally I don't. I'm walking down the plane, and almost everybody's on their screen. So I sit down, and what do? Pull up my screen. Now, my mind probably thinks a little differently than most of you, because at times I do a lot of introspection, so I pull up my screen, knowing that I just checked my email and text and finished all my emails while I was in the gate area. And I just put my phone away before I put my boarding pass over the scanner, so I know there's nothing new on my phone. And yet I pulled up my screen, and my thought was, what are you pulling up your screen for? You know there's nothing there. Why are you doing this? I don't know. Maybe to fit in with everybody. Maybe so they know I have a phone too. I don't know. Why would I do this? And then I began thinking a little bit more, and I felt the Holy Spirit begin to say to me, he said, what if you were as sensitive to me as you were to your phone? What if you woke up in the morning and the same expectation that you have over your phone to speak to you, to connect to you with other people, you would have in me to connect you with me and other people? What if when you're standing in line, instead of reaching for your phone to check for the latest update, the latest whatever, you would ask me, is there anything you want me to say to the person in front of me? Is there anything you want me to say to the person behind me? What if when you're sitting at the red light, instead of, here's a great time to check and see if any email came in, you ask me if there's anything happening in the house to my left, or is there anything happening to the house to my right? What if when you're in a meeting and you sensed my spirit speaking, or you sensed me asking you to share something with someone, you showed the same lack, put it this way, it is a lack of discipline, or the same attention, put it that way. Like I can be meeting with Bobby or Billy here, and if we're in a meeting and my text goes off, do you know how hard it is for me to let that lay there? Am I the only person talking about that? How many have ever felt that vibration in your pocket, you reached for it and your phone wasn't there? Yeah. Am I the only person? What's with that? What if you were that sensitive to me, Ron, that even, I think that's you. Oh, was he? Oh, I'm sorry. What if you were that sensitive? It challenged me. Our God prompting sensitivity. Next slide, recap. Here's what we do. Practically, how do we embrace a new thing? We acknowledge the Lord is doing one. We check our cynicism at the door. We embrace what he's doing now. We don't get into he's not doing anything. Well, he's done this before. That we check all that at the door, and we embrace what he's doing. Number 2, we let go of the old. Say, God, that was great. It had its season. It doesn't mean we discount it. Doesn't mean we don't learn from it. Doesn't mean we build on it. But we're not camped there. We're moving into what he has. Number 3, we take ownership, which means we take responsibility. Number 4, we're sensitive to the roadmap. We're listening because our tendency will be to revert back to the old because the old is comfortable and we don't like awkward space. Number 5, we make a decision to like the new. It's a choice. Listen, I'll tell you what. Bonnie and I started drinking coffee at what age? 40s? In our 40s because we were reaching out to a Colombian couple. And when you go to their house, no, I don't drink coffee. No, I don't drink coffee. There was a lack of connection. Or put it this way, we thought maybe we could connect better. Okay, so I'm not asking for your views on coffee or anything like that. All I can say is this. There have been a number of times where I took those first cups, and usually I tried it when I was driving late at night, trying to stay awake. Maybe this will help. Took one sip, pulled off the road, opened the door. I'm not drinking that. I remember we were at a apostolic meeting, and I'm taking a cup, and I had it black, and Brian Souter goes, you can put sugar and cream in that and make it good. I said, if I'm drinking this junk, I'm drinking it like a man. Sorry, no offense. But today I can drink a pot with any of you, all right? I made a decision, a choice. It's where we need to go. In fact, Bonnie bought me my own little pot, my own little coffee maker for my little office that isn't much bigger than the coffee pot itself, a little bit bigger. So, seriously, okay? All I'm saying is, point made, embrace the new. And pay attention to your GPS, all right? Now, we want to pray.